Hey everyone, welcome to today's episode. My name is Ryan.
I'm Gina.
And we are glad that you are here with us today.
Yeah.
Joining our discussion.
Conversations.
Conversations.
I like that word better.
Welcome to our conversations.
So we left off, the last episode was about you talking about the FLB, the fat lazy bastard.
It's been a few weeks since we left off.
Yeah, and so we're going to talk kind of piggyback off of that into kind of where it started trickling down into our whole, every area of our life. Right. And one of them was marriage. Yes. And so this is why we're doing this. The fat lazy bastard in our marriage. And so we had to stop being lazy. Yes. And we got to a point of we have a lot of stories surrounding around this one topic, and the topic is divorce. Yes. I feel like there should be like a piano going dun dun dun. Dun dun dun. The D word. But it's out there. Like so many people go through divorce, and so many people talk about it, and so many people, if you were like me, you're tormented with it. With the thought, the fear of what if that's me? What if that's my marriage that ends up in divorce? And that's where I lived for a really, really long time. So we have lots of stories within our marriage.
What do you think that came from? Like that torment? Why do you think that it tormented you so much?
I think because I focus so much on the picture perfect in every aspect of my world. And so it's almost like you force yourself to live up to a certain standard, and you set that standard in your head of what you think your life is going to look like. Yeah. And so when, what is it, like rubber meets the road. When rubber meets the road, when the hard times hit, you're really challenged with, oh my gosh, is the idea of actually sticking this out is that going to be our story? Yeah. Or is it going to be the other way around? And I grew up with, we both grew up with parents that have been married for years. We don't come from divorced families. And our upbringing surrounding environments, it was looked at as divorce was a bad thing. Yeah. So I think it was always a very negative. So I never heard the struggle be even talked about. I heard the words like, I'm going to divorce you. And then rings taken off and arguments happening. But yet in my mind, it was like, oh, it must take guts to leave because neither one of my parents left. Right. And
mine was opposite of that.
You never heard any of the
very rarely did I hear my parents ever argue or raise their voice, So our backgrounds are completely different.
Night and day
difference,
So much.
And you put that in their one household and and so but there's good and bad in both of those situations where it's been a challenge for me to share my thoughts and feelings and stuff like that, is just suppress it, push it down and figure it out. Yeah. And most of the time but really realistically we don't figure it out. We just kind of brush it past.
Yeah, we just kind of pretend
and you have no problem sharing what's on your mind.
So I grew up in an extreme situation of where we shared every little thing and we talked about every little thing and everybody knew. So if it wasn't just my problem, it was the whole family's problem. Yeah. And so I came in with that. And I think that's kind of honestly when we sat down with counseling with our counselors, when we first started like identifying, wow, this is a problem. Like Gina, I truly deal with the fear of divorce and I need to talk about it, or I truly deal with, I talked about and brought it up with suicidal thoughts, depression, and we'll get there in another video eventually, but like.
Absolutely. What? I was just going to say, it's interesting. When I asked that question, you said something really, really interesting about why did you feel tormented with that? And it was the perfectionism. Yeah. And it's interesting to see how, in anybody's life, my life, your life, anyone who, whenever we think one way that we have to be perfect in an area, how damaging that really is. Right. And that we were never meant to be this perfect person.
Never.
And live up to this such high standard that we can't obtain it.
it wasn't just,
That is
it
tormenting.
necessarily wasn't modeled. Perfection was not modeled in my home. It was modeled in my environment, which was religion
life,
and church. And so it was heavily the example that was led on stage and that was taught from marriage classes to then when we had kids with parenting classes and then the way we were raised as a youth. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Like we had to be perfect. So the minute we stepped into the church doors, it was put the mask on. No one argued in our house. Mom and dad were fine. We have the perfect family. And then I have to start performing and start living that out.
Right.
And so eventually I got exhausted living that way. And eventually it came and it showed its reared its ugly head into our life and into our marriage. And to the ultimate dream was I wanted to be married. That was the ultimate. As a little girl, I could just remember dreaming about that and watching movies about it, just going, I'm going to have that one day. I'm going to fall in love with somebody and he's going to be my forever one and only. And that was you. And so here we were. So, but back to the counseling, when we sat down, it was such like a weight was lifted off of my shoulders when I heard our counselor say one thing to us.
Yeah.
And it was the start of a new beginning of you walk into a marriage already. So for me, it was 24 years old. I got married at 24 years old. You were
23.
23. And I came in with 24 years of already a Gina that was already programmed, that was already had all these stories in my head of what life should look like. And I had an upbringing that was 24 years into it. So therefore, I'm coming into a marriage 24 years old in a sense of a certain mindset.
24 years worth of baggage. And
that's a better way to say it.
And I had 23 years worth of baggage that I brought in, the mindset that I had, same thing.
Yeah, and so here you are with those many years already within, and then now you're just starting the new beginning of what we say marriage, a covenant with one another. And so life got really bad. It was our worst case scenario of the loss of our baby. It was finances, it was spirituality, it was relationships, it was children, it was family life, it was all dynamics of life just came to the rubber meets the road.
It's like the perfect shit storm.
The shit show. It was. And so I had always heard this one thing, and the many stories that we have, I do want to share this one. And the story is a highly admired couple that I had grown up with. The wife had just passed away, and they had been in their marriage for 50 plus years. And I remember going over to our friend's house and just admiring this couple. And here they were, older age. I'm like, okay, surely I could heed advice from this man. And I asked the question, what did you do? It's almost like Ryan has a 102-year-old grandmother. And every year when I see her, I'm like, okay, Grandma, tell me, what's your secret? And that's how we think about marriage is, what's your secret? Tell me. And he said the words that I had heard all my life. And at this point, we had already been through the shit show. And he said, well, it was never an option.
Divorce.
Divorce was never an option. And I was like, dang, I've heard that one before. And I sat and I heard his story. I heard how he loved his wife with everything in him. He was just, he treated her like a queen. And I highly love and respect that. You treated me that way. But yet here I was still unhappy. And it still was the thought rolling around in my head. So I left that.
But there were disconnects on my end too. It's not just you had... You like. Oh my God! It always works both ways. Absolutely.
100%. It always works both ways. And so, if you're doing the blame game, look back at you, right?
Because I don't want to get off track of your story, but on the outside you could probably say, I treated you like a queen,
right?
But I knew that in myself, I wasn't. Like there was a disconnect. and there, you know, I was trying to check off boxes. I wasn't trying to treat you like a king would treat a queen. I was trying to mimic and check off the boxes to go, well, look, I'm doing good enough.
Right.
But there's a big difference between just checking off some boxes and actually treating you and admiring you as a queen
and
respecting
me.
Yeah,
like
knowing you,
my
really
heart.
wanting to know you.
Yeah.
And that was the biggest thing, and I've said that in the past, like, sex isn't just about sex. Sex is about intimacy, or that's a part of it, but there's a whole nother side of intimacy that doesn't even include the act of sex. And that was where my mindset had to shift years ago and go, I want intimacy with you, not just sex. Because if you just go, well, I'm going to do this, so I can get sex, that's one way to do it, but it's a very empty way to do it. Or I'm going to do these things to pursue and chase after my queen, to have intimacy and to have that relationship. And a part of that is to get to have sexual intercourse. That is an amazing thing. But they're totally night and day difference scenarios. So that's where I was. Again, back to your
it was going back to the drawing board. And I say this a lot when I sit and meet with a friend, or when we meet with a couple. It's like, go back to the drawing board, and it's okay to do that. And I want to put that out there, that it's okay to go back to the drawing board. This is what we had to do. Was, if we want to see this marriage work, and if we want this long lasting, we have to go back to the drawing board, and we have to do this many times. And now it's not being afraid of doing that. But so I just remember we had then lost, and we haven't talked about this yet, but I then had lost a second baby. Just last year. And his name, we found out it was a baby boy, and we named him Ethan. And we'll get into his story a little bit, I'm sure, in another video. But it was in that we had just then, lost Annabelle. We went through marriage counseling. We kind of got some new waves of life of how we want to live this out. And that, okay, we're experiencing some things. But then here, fast forward 3 years later, after the loss of Annabelle, we try again, and then I lose a second baby, and now it was our baby boy. And that completely shifted our lives. And so I remember washing dishes one day, bringing up the story, saying to myself, man, here's that thought again. Life is getting too hard. And it almost seems easier to do this just completely alone, without a spouse, without someone who I have to come check in with, without someone I need to talk to at night, without someone I need to have sex with, without someone saying, oh, do you like this friend? I want to hang out with this couple, and then I have to check in with you. And sometimes I think it's just easier. It's that story. It's that lie inside my head that it must be easier just to get a divorce. So
whenever she says check in, it's not that, like, I'm like, you have to check in with me. You guys understand, like, if I have a friend and a spouse or like, you understand the check-in thing, so don't go overboard. Like Ryan's making his wife check in on everything. No. May I please do this, sir?
No, but I mean, you want to enjoy your dinner with a friend, and I don't want you to show up and go, oh my God.
Right. And so you're wanting to be combined.
But sometimes I've had the thought of, oh my God, it'd just be so much easier to just do this alone. And so here was a thought. I was washing dishes, put the girls to bed at night. We have this conversation, and I just said out loud, I said, Ryan, here's that thought again, is sometimes going back to that conversation with my friend, light years ahead of me is, I get it, it's not an option, but what if we've already made it an option?
Yeah. What if we've already gone down that road, and
now what?
You've said it out of your mouth, and we've
argued. Our kids have seen us argue. We've said it multiple times. Yes, I've thrown my ring off. Yes, I've walked out the door. Yes, you've walked. Like, hello, we're in the trenches of this has already become an option. Now what?
Yeah.
And I'll never forget what you said, and I want you to share that, is you said, well, it is an option.
Yeah. Well, and you can correct me if I get it wrong. You remember things a lot better than I do, but sometimes I just say things and I forget.
Those stories changed my life, so I remember.
But I remember just saying, like, it is an option if we make it an option, and every day I have to wake up going, today, I have today as a contract with you, in a sense, going, you've chosen to stay with me today. Now, if I choose to really royally F that up, then that opens the door for you to be like, I didn't sign up for this.
Right.
And neither should you. And same with you. And so it's a matter of us growing together. And I have to grow every day, not only to be the best for myself, but to be the best for my queen, to
and
be
that's
the
what
best
you
for
said.
my
You said
children.
Divorce becomes an option when I stop being the best version of me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, when I
stop
stop doing
holy
it. Yeah.
crap.
Yeah, when I stop being the best version of me and I give up on myself, that opens that door for you to have that option, because she didn't sign up for that. When we got married, I mean, think about this. When you were just a single person and you were dating your now spouse, or if you are single and or maybe you're dating somebody and you're looking to get married, remember that what you do during this time to pursue your, or pursue your boyfriend, girlfriend at that time, fiance, whatever it is. But I have to remember, how did I pursue my wife when we were dating? And if I've given up on that just because I'm like, well, we got married, we're already married, like, that's good enough. Like, that's such a bullshit mentality and attitude that we can get into, and not necessarily consciously, but subconsciously.
Yes.
We just
live so much in that subconscious.
You go to work every day, you have kids, you do
Super
sports
easy to
with
fall.
kids, or you do sports whether you play softball, soccer, whatever, like, so you do extracurricular activities, and you're just kind of going through the mundane of life, and we forget what we did to connect at the beginning. And so it's not that you go back to that, it's that, what are you doing right now to connect? Because the things that we, obviously the things that we connected with whenever we were dating are not the same things that we connect with today. So we change. Our desires and wants, they change. And so we have to continue to know each other.
And I'm going to say this because this happened where we did the whole doing a date night every single week.
Mm-hmm.
And then that became
mundane.
Very mundane.
And it check that box off.
Yeah, it was just another checkbox.
Yeah.
And then we forgot to be really intentional about it. And then, okay, oh, awesome, we did a date night. Yay, we're supposed to feel better, but we weren't feeling better. So we stopped doing date nights. We stopped making it so rigid. Like, okay, if I don't do this, then I'm going to screw up. And if I don't do that, then statistics say this. And if I don't do that, then the book said this. And then the preacher on the pulpit said that. And then we're looking so many, like, outward. And we're forgetting to look within. And finally I was like, screw date nights. They're not doing anything for us. Like, we're busy. Life is changing. You had a new career. I was finally getting to this place of being happy about being a mom to the 2 kids that I was blessed with, we were blessed with. And we're changing our mindsets, and we're challenging ourselves like never before. And life started changing for us. And I was like, I'm done doing it the way we used to do it, because it never worked in the first place. So stop doing date nights. And we stopped, and we started falling back in love with just the simplicity of just being with each other.
I mean, that's what
it took for us. I mean, wasn't.
No, you're right. And date nights, that's what a date night is. So if you're doing the same thing and not getting, you're doing the same thing expecting different results. I mean, that's the definition of insanity. And we were insane. We were kept doing the same thing. So a date night doesn't need to be the typical, like, all right, we're going to go out, we're going to have dinner, and we're going to do this, and we're going to watch a movie, or whatever your typical date night in your mind is. And we just took time where we just went out for a walk, or we just took time just sitting down and talking, putting the kids to bed.
I remember one time we took the time, you called me for lunch, let's do lunch, and we had lunch in the car.
Yeah.
And it was like, that was the time we had.
Yeah. And it was the communication, the talking, just that time that we spent, that it wasn't this rigid, we have to do this thing. And also it turned into where, for me, I want to have the time with you. But it wasn't the typical date night scenario. Yeah. And so we had to learn to love that. Right. And to be okay with that, and to change our mindsets around what a date night or what a date looks like. And so it doesn't have to be the go get dressed up and go out to dinner or whatever. It could be go grab a sandwich from sandwich shop and sit in the car by a park and talk and eat for 30 minutes, and then you're done. Then you go on with the rest of your day, but you stop and have that time to connect. And that's what a date night is supposed to be for. It's not just I checked it off my list. It's a time to connect with your spouse. However you do that. That's the thing, is however you do that, that's the important thing, is make it unique to you and your spouse, or you and your loved one. Who would, if you're in the dating phase, know that, like, keep those things going, but no, again, like, you have to work at it.
And this is where don't look what everybody else is doing. Stay within your lane and what works for you. Because what works for you is not going to work for somebody else, and what works for us is not going to work for you. And so it's important, again, it's keep looking within and saying, okay, hold on, what season am I in? How are we operating? And going back to that drawing board. Yeah. And I would even say this, we've met friends who their date nights are consumed with other couples or groups of people, and you could get super busy or so tied up with everybody else's busy life, because that's entertaining. Like, let's be honest.
Always entertaining.
Like watching other couples, are like, oh, cool, they argue too, and you're going out with them, and you're whatever. It's easy setups to get comfortable with. And then it's wherever you're busy at, come back down to make sure you put each other as a priority.
For sure.
And so if going out with couples is what you do, awesome. But if it's becoming too much of a routine and you're forgetting about one another, and then here you are going to sleep at night and you're talking about your couple friend that you went out with and what they're dealing with, and you forgot to talk about each other.
And what you're dealing with.
Then, okay, back off, right? Boundaries. And that's really a lot of what we've had to learn is boundaries within our life, boundaries within our family. So,
that's good.
Okay, so I feel like we just talked about a ton of stuff. I hope it's meaningful for you guys out there listening. Okay, the other story that I want to connect and kind of wrap things up with is it was actually right before we lost Ethan. I remember divorce was another conversation. We got into this huge argument, and I finally said the words to you, "It takes guts to leave." And you looked at me and said, "It doesn't take guts to leave, it takes guts to stay." And I really want to talk about that. That truly changed. It kind of shut me up. And I went, wow, all these years I've heard about the conversation, but I had the wrong perception. I had the wrong story. To me, I looked at people that got divorced as though they had guts to leave. And don't get me wrong, it does take guts to leave when you're in a situation where you're
abusive situation or something like that. Yeah.
When the person is altering truly who you are as a human being, where they're degrading you, and you need to get out of those situations. And I think that. I think that's the main thing, is where you're at. And so many times we know things, but we just don't act on it.
Correct.
And so for me, but when you said that, I went, wow, I am not applying what I know to our marriage. And so I knew it wasn't about this is going to take guts to leave, because we were not in that situation. It had to take guts for me to stay.
Right.
And when you said that, I truly started looking so much within of, okay, how am I going to make this work to stay? Yeah. And how am I going to change that lie, that fear, that story that's in my head, and change this perspective? And so how I did that was it took work.
Yeah.
And I went back to the drawing board. What are the lies? And I would take time for myself, and you would give me some time. Whatever you got to do, Gina. Whatever you got to do for yourself. And I was honest about it, and I would write down the lie, and I would exchange it for truth, or I would meet with somebody, or I'd listen to something, or I'd read a book, or I would start doing the work.
Right.
And so.
And that I would say, to attest to that, like, you really did. Like, you really put in the work. And I'm super proud of you, because it made me know that the work that I was doing and the work that you were doing, that we were starting to connect and reconnect in a different way. But but it was also like the honesty.
It really was.
For you, like being honest about that and where you were and
being
how
allowed
difficult
just to
it
talk
was.
about it without you like snapping at. I mean, there were times where you're like,
oh, absolutely,
dude, like enough. But then there was times where like, wow, this is really getting inside your head and we need to talk about it. And I think that's what I love so much about our marriage is we're not afraid to go there with each other.
And I think, we were talking before we went on camera about this scenario and about how listen to the other videos that we've done, and we talk about the safe place. And how had we not had the safe place, neither you nor I would have had the place to come to one another and say, hey, this is what I'm dealing with. This is what I'm going through. And to be able to talk those things out and to be able to say, like, I need help and this is what I'm going through. And not necessarily that I need you to fix me, but I just need you to know this is what I'm going through. And this is where my mindset is at right now. And so there will be times whenever you don't feel like you're connecting or whatever, but it's like, hey, I'm going through something. My mind is like consumed with something else right now, but I need to get back on track and I need to get myself back on track. And that is the time to go, cool, we have that space and let's work through this and let's work this out.
Right.
And I'm here for you, but you're going to have to do the work. And same for me. I have to do the work that I have to do.
I can't wait for you and I can't wait. Nobody can fix your problems. Nobody can fix mine. I have to go out and find it. And I think one of the question you've been asking in our conversations is, what do you need? And you would present that to me and say, what do you need?
Yeah.
Is there anything I could do to help? And then it was so much of, no, I don't need anything. I don't need you to help. And then it would start to really get me thinking, well, what do I need and what do I need help with? And then I would have to go out and find it. Right. And so it's, But
guys, don't try to fix your wife. Seriously. That was a big, huge lesson for me to learn.
Yeah.
And it was so freeing for me also to go, okay, I don't need to fix her. She doesn't need to be fixed by me. She has to put in the work. But as long as she knows that I'm there and I'm supportive of her and that I'm giving her the space, if she asks, like, I don't know, okay, we can come alongside one another and brainstorm and try to help with some resources or whatnot. But we don't have to fix our wives, but we're there to support and to be there for them.
And I had to get away from looking to you to fix me.
Right.
So you cannot fix me.
And that goes vice versa.
Yeah.
There's a lot of guys out there who they wait for their wives to fix them or, whatever. So.
Right. And I do want to close with this, that if this has been a conversation in your home and you feel so guilty about bringing it up in front of your children, and gosh, babe, I mean, wouldn't you agree? We've heard this so many times, like, oh, I don't want to argue in front of the kids. I even heard it when I was going through just the loss of our babies. It was someone saying to me, don't cry in front of your kids. And my question is, how could you not cry?
Yeah.
Like, hello, we're human.
And then we just teach our kids, just shove the emotion down.
Yes, and so...
Mom doesn't cry, dad doesn't cry, so we don't cry.
Yeah, and so I want to encourage you, it's okay. Your kids are so much stronger than what you know. And maybe we'll do another video on this of how strong we had when we were faced with the loss of Annabelle and our kids showed up at the hospital. We didn't know what to say. We didn't know what to do. And that set us up for, wow, our kids are way stronger than what they think. But then also your kids are going to show you their strength. Yeah. And we just saw our oldest, I will say, shows us this time and time and time again. And she more so verbally expresses it, where our youngest more so shows us in her actions. Yeah. And so Cadence, she'll be like, if we're arguing, she's not afraid. Like that, the time that you told me. Yeah.
It's probably been like 2 or 3 times maybe that she's like
really specifically stopped us in our tracks.
When it was like, when it was bad, when we were like...
When it was like, get the hell out of the house. And then when you told me this is not an option, like, or that, gosh darn, what did you say to me? I'm
trying to remember.
We just shared the story.
Oh, about the, like, this is, it's only an option if Like if I stop or...
Gosh darn it. What did you just say? I'm completely losing my train of thought.
What did we just say? What did I just say?
You said it doesn't take guts to leave. It takes guts to stay. And in that argument, our daughter, they were sleeping at this time. Well, little did I know. Our oldest just woke up. She heard us arguing. I'm running up the stairs. I had taken off my ring. It got ugly scene, right? And so I'm up the stairs. She gets out of her room and she starts screaming, Mom, get in my room. Dad, get in your room.
She became the parent.
Sadly, right? Like I'm thinking, oh God, how sad. But then I didn't know what that moment. And she's like, sit on my bed. And she said to me, she's like, I love my family. I didn't sign up for this. And she just laid it. Like she has this like gift of like taking life by the horns and like setting things straight. Yeah. And this is something she's had since she was so young, of just having this fight and this gusto for life of saying, I love my parents. And she looked at me in the eye and she said, I love you and Dad. And divorce is not an option in this house. And you will work it out. And I was like, oh my gosh, child.
Who are you?
So I'm bawling, and then you come in the room and we talked about it. Yeah. And I can say that has also driven our youngest to now talk about, she may be able to not talk, verbally express, but it's our job as now parents to try to find what she is dealing with internally, because so many times, right, we do suppress and we don't know how. Mm-hmm. And just like what we were talking about, you were raised with not talking about it. I was raised with the extreme of everything was so out there, where we need to find this balance of how this is going to work within our marriage. And how is this going to work with our children? Because reality is our children is going to go through hardship, and I want them to know we're going to be there for them. Yeah. Mom and Dad are not afraid to go there to these places. We're not afraid to face life. You're going to have times head on.
You have to confront. You're going to have to confront things in your own mind and your own heart. You're going to have to confront people, or you're going to have to confront situations.
Right now, it's, my God, already our 7-year-old is going through losing a friend. And that's, in her world, that is just a big horrible. Deal.
But then it's teaching her how to confront that and go, you don't have to lose this friend if you will confront the situation.
Absolutely.
And she's afraid of that, and that's okay. Yeah. But that's something she has to get over. And so that kind of takes you back to we all have things that we're afraid of, and
it starts so young. Mm-hmm. And I would just encourage parents out there to recognize what's going on in your house. Absolutely. And so much of what your kids are showing is so much a reflection of what you're dealing with. Yes. So work on you, and when you work on yourself, then you work on each other, it will trickle down and it will encourage your kids to do the very same thing, and you'll start to stir up these conversations. We just want to leave you with this today, to challenge yourself to change the stories, the lies that are rolling around in your head. If you have the same lie as me with divorce and the fear of divorce, get it out there. Find a safe place. The safe place that we talk about is so much of cultivating it. It's something that does not happen overnight. Right. It takes conversation. It takes consistency of showing up time and time and time again. And so show up for not only yourself, but for your marriage, your relationship. And you're worth it. Your marriage is worth it. And your life is worth it. Your children are worth it. And they're going to thank you one day for it. Absolutely. So we want to challenge you guys with that today. And remember, you are not alone.